Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Scout Selections here for Saturday, March 14th. Before we get into today's play, a quick recap of what happened yesterday. We ended up giving out a look-ahead line on the UFC card that's coming up later today. We get that one out yesterday, and it was on a matchup between Silva and Dvorak, and we actually got a pretty good number as we have seen some line movement in our favor. So if you have not checked out that video, check that one out. But for today's play today, we're going to be sticking with the UFC. And there is one matchup that I do like. It is going to be on a prop, and it will be on the matchup between Nikita, Krylov, and Johnny Walker. And we like Johnny Walker to win by knockout, which is available on FanDuel at plus 120, and that will be the play of the day. Now, a couple reasons why I like Walker here at plus 120 to win by knockout. First of all, just based on comparing the lines available at other sites, plus 120 is the best deal you're going to get by a wide margin. DraftKings currently has Walker to win by knockout at plus 101, and FoxBet has Walker to win by knockout at even money. So based on that, you're getting roughly 19 cents minimum of value on the knockout with FanDuel. So I think that that's a pretty solid value right there. But the main reasons with regard to the actual fight breakdown is based on the fact that Walker, even though he did lose his last fight to Corey Anderson in knockout fashion, each of his last 4 fights have been stopped in the first round, and since the total in this fight is currently at under 1.5 rounds, or roughly minus 180, that means that oddsmakers think somebody's going to get their head taken off, and based on that, and Walker being a minus 140, slightly growing to minus 150 favorite, the only way I think Walker wins this fight is by knockout. I don't think he's going to win by submission. Krylov is very solid on the ground, as he is a black belt in various amounts of martial arts, but he's also a master of sports and submission fighting, and he's won 15 times by submission. So I do think that if Walker is going to win this fight as the favorite, he will have to do it standing up, and that is definitely not an issue for Walker, as that is his forte. If you've looked at Walker in his UFC career, first of all, it's been very entertaining, but if you've looked at his actual breakdown, he's fought 21 times, he has 17 wins and 4 losses, with 14 of those 17 wins coming by knockout. He's pretty much a knockout specialist. The 3 wins that he has in the UFC after the Contender Series in Brazil were all by first-round knockouts. 2 of them within 36 seconds, all 3 of them within the first 2 minutes of the fight. But if you've actually looked at Walker's career, he's had 1 of his last 16 fights enter the 3rd round, and every other fight, 15 of the last 16 have been stopped in either the 1st or the 2nd round. So based on that, I think either Walker's going to win by knockout, or I think that Krylov is going to win by submission. But personally, Walker, I just think, has too much power for Krylov to actually deal with. He's also got a massive reach advantage in this fight. Krylov, despite being a very, despite being in good shape and being 6'3", 205 pounds with a reach of 75.5 inches, it's just a bit of a problem because Walker is 6'5", and he has an 82-inch reach. So he's got 4.5 inches of reach advantage, and he arguably has the most power in the entire weight division. So based on that, I really don't think that's going to go well. It's also going to be in Walker's backyard. I'm not really sure how much of an impact that will have because of the fact that fans are not going to be there. But that is worth mentioning that he is from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. But overall, I just think Walker's going to take his head off within the first 3 to 6 minutes or so. I would be kind of surprised to see go to the 2nd round. Walker has the ability to end fights in a hurry with a variety of different knockouts. He's won by elbows against Khalil Roundtree. He's won by a spinning back fist against Ledette. He won by a flying knee against Sirkunov. He has a lot of different methods in how to actually knock people out. And I think that Krylov, despite being decent in the stand-up, as he has 11 wins by knockout, I just don't think he's going to be ready to see the type of explosiveness that Johnny Walker possesses, and for that reason, I think Walker should win this fight within the 1st round. But either or, definitely the value is there on Walker to win by knockout, which is available at plus 120 on FanDuel, and that will be the play of the day. Now, looking at some of the other fights on the card, there's really not much to talk about. I'm not going to be one of those people trying to break down Argentinian soccer. Not really my forte. I'm not going to pretend I know what I'm talking about with that. Maybe in the future when I actually look at some lines, maybe. But as of right now, I'm just going to stick to UFC on this one. Looking at the actual cards, though, for some leans, I'll tell you, one of the biggest values that I found on the card was actually Damian Maia by submission. And I find that very fascinating that most books have his odds at submission as the same odds of Burns getting a submission, which makes no sense because Maia is one of the greatest submission artists in the history of the sport. But he's currently at plus 600 on FanDuel to win by submission, but DraftKings has Maia to win by submission at plus 650. I don't really know how you don't consider taking that. I know that this fight will only be 3 rounds because of the fact that it's not the headliner, as Kevin Lee is going to be the main fight there. But at the same point, Maia's just one of the best submission artists of all time, and you're getting him to win by submission at plus 650. I'm not really sure how you're not supposed to take that. So that's one of my main leans there. Do I think it's going to win? Probably not. But at the end of the day, you get a 4th-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu who has 14 wins by submission. And a couple gold medals to boot as well. Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Damian Maia as an underdog on that one, and I'm also going to have to lean to him by submission, which is available at plus 650 on DraftKings. Other than that, though, looking at the rest of the card, a couple of other fighters that I am interested in. I do like Bueno Silva in the female matchup there. Currently at roughly minus 145 on the money line. Moroz is not bad, a decent boxer, but at the end of the day, I think Silva has too much talent on the ground, and I think that she will be able to dictate in whether it's the grappling, the clinch, or even in the ground. I just think that if it goes to the ground, I expect Moroz to pretty much be on her back for the majority of any given round, and I think Silva should end up winning by decision. Other than that, I am going to lean to Barzola to win by decision, which is available at plus 1, I believe it's plus 125 or plus 130 on I believe it's FanDuel or I think DraftKings at plus 130 on Barzola to win by decision. Simply put, Ronnie's opponent, Yaya, has been a very solid submission artist during the course of his career, but he's also 35. He hasn't fought in over a year, and the last fight he was in, he got absolutely embarrassed. He ended up losing his last fight. I believe it was 30-27, 30-27, 30-25, and he hasn't fought in over a year, so I personally think Yaya might get run over here. Barzola isn't a big threat to actually knock anybody out, but he is a pretty capable wrestler, and I think Barzola should be able to do enough in the stand-up to keep Yaya off guard. I expect Yaya, whose stand-up game is really just not polished whatsoever. He kind of just flails his arms, he goes for some home run shots, and I think that Barzola should be able to take advantage of him in the stand-up, while also mixing in some wrestling just to change the levels up. And the most important thing about Barzola's wrestling background is the fact that he has the ability to stuff takedown attempts that Yaya will definitely throw in rapid succession over the 3 rounds. But at the end of the day, I just think that there's a massive talent disparity here. There's a reason why Barzola went from roughly minus 160 to minus 200, and I don't think that he's going to win by knockout, and Yaya's pretty solid on the ground. So for me, I'll lean to Barzola plus 130 on DraftKings to win by decision. I think that there's some solid value on there, and those are my main leans. However, I know some of you are going to want my thoughts on the actual main fight here between Kevin Lee and Charles Oliveira. And for that one, I'm going to have to lean to Lee. I know Oliveira is very solid in submissions, and Kevin Lee's pretty good on the ground also. I still give the edge to Oliveira there. But Lee actually was overweight for this fight by about a pound or two, and usually when that happens, you tend to back the person with extra weight because they are possessing a little bit more knockout power than their opponent. I think if Lee's going to win this fight, it will have to be early. The longer this fight goes, the more I think Lee will do something stupid, and I think Oliveira should capitalize on that. Kevin Lee has a lot of physical gifts. His mental game is relatively fragile, putting that mildly, and I think that the longer this fight goes, Oliveira will start to wear him down. I expect this fight to turn into a decent amount of struggling on the ground, but I do think Lee does have more knockout potential, and I think Lee will end up connecting on one for a knockout victory. So for me, I'll lean to Kevin Lee there. Would I be surprised if Oliveira wins? No. But in terms of value, especially since Lee is overweight, I'll lean to Lee to win by knockout as my main thought on that fight. Other than that, though, don't really have much else to talk about with regard to the fight card. Those are my main leans. Other than that, though, that's going to do it with this installment of Scott Selections here for Saturday, March 14th. Play that I once again is going to be on Johnny Walker to win by knockout, which is available at plus 120 on FanDuel. And good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.